Beautiful. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ferg's Footy Fanfare. I'm Jay, and I'm here with Ned. How you going, Ned?
Good, thanks, Jay. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Now, this is good. We're at round five now of the football, and this is the main reason that, we had this idea. We wanted to be able to preview rounds and review rounds. Now, of course, in 2020, there's a lot of differences, very unique circumstances, but we finally get to do that for the first time, and I'm looking forward to it, Ned.
Yeah, mate. It's gonna be good. Can't wait.
Beautiful. Now, I know that we've also had a lot of news today in terms of AFL hubs. That's progressed to the fact where we now know where each club is moving out. So we've got 6 teams going to Queensland. So we've got St Kilda, North Melbourne, Western Bulldogs, Essendon, Richmond and Carlton going to Queensland. So we have Carlton and St Kilda, they're going to Noosa, and the other 4 clubs are going to Gold Coast. Hawthorn and Melbourne are going to New South Wales, and Collingwood and Geelong are going to spend 1 week in New South Wales in Sydney before heading to Perth. So what do you think this means, Ned, in terms of, whether teams are going to be able to bring their full list, or, how are the players going to react to this?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Richmond captain Trent Cotchin spoke out early that some of the senior players at Richmond weren't really keen on leaving to go into a hub. I think they were prioritising family and all that first. And obviously Eddie Betts also said that, he doesn't really want to go into a hub. I think he will though. But yeah, obviously it's not good, but if football wants to continue, it's what has to be done.
Yeah, of course. No, I completely agree with you on that fact. And I saw this earlier today, Gillon McLaughlin said something that the first stint will be 32 days. So perhaps after that, if the number of cases in Victoria has dropped, it might be a bit more acceptable to bring family members over and, could kind of combat that sense of homesickness for some players.
Yeah.
Because of the hub movement, that means there's been changes to the round 6 fixture and the round 7 fixture. But we'll get more into that next week, I think, when we start to preview the round 6 rounds. So we know there's been a few fixture changes, but because it's all so fluid at the moment, it's going to change a fair bit more, I reckon.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we'll talk about last round, Ned. What did you take out of round 4?
Round 4, Port Adelaide is still looking pretty solid. Obviously undefeated, but I think, this will be a real test for them this week against Brisbane. So I actually can't wait for that game.
Yeah, just on that, I think with Port Adelaide, it was a really good test for them to see, especially when they came up in that third quarter where West Coast started to get on top of it a little bit. So it was a good test for them, especially playing 3 easier clubs earlier on. I would have given them a fair bit of confidence going into this week.
And I reckon another thing I learned is that the Giants are probably the real deal, I think. Collingwood have probably been the form side of the competition, premiership favourites, I believe, and the Giants were able to just get over the line and, in a very close game, but, that does them a whole world of good after a few disappointing weeks.
Yeah. No, so I've got a fun fact that I've got courtesy of the man himself on Twitter, Sir Swamp Things. So round 4 2020 was the first time in VFL AFL history that there have been margins of 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and 4 points. That's right.
Good
with your numbers,
I did see
there,
that.
Ned.
That's crazy.
That's a ripper. That's an absolute ripper of a stat. So, although people might be complaining about the entertainment of the quality of footy, there can be no argument made about the entertainment of close games and close finishes.
Yeah, that's right. But we'll probably dive into this a bit later, but I'm still not a fan of the shorter quarters.
Yeah, I think it'll come into that because I'm not too sure how the quarantine period works for clubs moving over. Do they have to adhere to it, or?
I don't know, unless they're chartered or something and get special exemption and have to be isolated away from the general public or something. I don't know how that works.
No, not me neither. So I think that's something that potentially, if they do have to go through quarantine, it looks like they're going to play next week. So I'm assuming there's no quarantine issues. But that's definitely going to be an issue with shorter quarters. I mean, There seems to be no reason at this current stage why there is a need to be. But that's just something they'll have to figure out in the future. And I guess it just gives them that little insurance in case it does come up where they need to get a certain amount of games done over a short period of time.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go and start reviewing this week, Ned. Of course, we had the game last night, Carlton St Kilda. Did you tune into that, mate?
Yeah, I tuned into it for a bit. I was actually flicking between the rugby and the footy.
How good was the game last night in the rugby, by the way?
Yeah, it was good. I went to bed right before the end because I thought, it was done and dusted. And then I heard flicking through on Facebook that, it's going to Golden Point and Melbourne won in Golden Point.
Yeah.
As much to my disgust.
That was an outstanding game. Don't really watch it that much, but I had to tune in for the watch the KO mini on that one.
Yeah. Max King, is that St Kilda's King?
Yeah.
Max King? Yeah, he looks really good. He looks really good up there. Just clunking the ball at the highest point. He looks really good. Dan Butler looks really good as well. I think your skipper, bloody Geary, he looked really good.
Well, that's it. Yeah. That kind of feeds into what I was going to say. I think that it was much as one in the coach's box yesterday more than anything else.
I don't think Carlton were really up to it. I think Carlton were. Yeah, they were just poor in their disposal, and there was one passage of play that I saw, and they switched the ball out of their back line, tried to switch it off half back, and they've made a meal of it and banged goals in Kilda.
No, that's true. And I think, Brett Ratton has to get a lot of credit for that in terms of, and I think this is a blueprint that every team needs to take playing against Carlton. If you're able to nullify Cripps and nullify Doherty, then I reckon you're going to win more times than you lose. So by having Geary as that defensive forward, I think that locks him down. And at times, Doherty was forced to play on the wing, so he struggled to get that rebound out of the back line. And then still in the first half did a ripper job on Cripps. I think kept him to like 5 disposals, forced him to go into the forward line.
I didn't even, to be honest, I don't reckon it was until either some point late in the first quarter or some point in the second quarter that I'm like, oh, Cripps is actually playing. He didn't have that much of an influence.
No, so it'll be interesting to see whether that's, a bit of a trend that occurs whenever Carlton are playing from now on. Because from what I heard, and I was with you last week, Doherty tore up the game. So perhaps that's something that will be aimed at a bit more.
Yeah.
Tonight's game, Collingwood-Essendon.
Yeah, Collingwood, easy.
Yeah, you got Sidebottom out and you got Howe out.
Yeah, I still think, Collingwood they're a brilliant side in all, in all lines. Howe's out, probably the best defender going around at the moment, but there's still other blokes down there like Darcy Moore and Mychek.
Yeah, Crisp as well, yeah.
Crisp, yeah. I think I don't see much out of Essendon really this year. I think to have lost to Carlton last week.
Yeah,
and only to just beat Fremantle in round one. So, and Collingwood want to bounce back after a game that they probably should have won last week.
And not only that, but with the 2 outs, Sidebottom and Howe are obviously huge outs, but they've got Treloar coming back in, they've got Varco in. And I know that they've got Scharenberg coming in as well. So it's not like they're bringing in, really inexperienced players. They're going to add a lot of skill and quality around the ball and outside of half back. So, plus Essendon with Merritt out as well. I can't see Essendon winning this one.
No, neither. No way.
All right, so we'll move on to the next game. We've got West Coast and Sydney, 2 teams that are struggling, had poor weeks last week. What do you think's the go here?
Yeah, I was a bit baffled by this one because obviously West Coast aren't playing well, and Sydney, they've been really hard to gauge. I think there's got to be a point where West Coast have just got to show their quality because they're a very good side, and I think this week, I think this is their last week or second last week in their hub. Last week, I think.
Yeah.
So I think they'll they'll want to try and go over the bang because if they want to make something of this season, West Coast, they can't just leave it all to doing it at home, regardless how many games at home they play. They need to win as many as possible from now on.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. They've got Jeremy McGovern coming back in, although Lewis Jetta is out. He's dropped. But I thought Sydney were really disappointing last week. I tipped them against the Doggies because I thought, you always expect them to be competitive. And I thought they were really poor, both in their attitude and their quality of possession. So, no, I think West Coast, I agree with you in the sense they're going to have to start showing their quality eventually. And hopefully that sense of a homesickness and an inability to play away from home, they overcome that this week and get the job done because they desperately need to win. Bit of form heading back home. Yeah, they desperately need that. Your mob, Geelong.
Not my mob.
Gold Coast. That's going to end up being a good game, Ned.
I'm probably going to cop a lot of stick for this, but I think this is probably going to be the day that Gold Coast probably just get a bit of a reality check.
Yeah. I 100% thought that you were going to say you were tipping Gold Coast for a second then.
Nah. I think Geelong, much like Collingwood, finished top of the ladder at the end of home and away last year, made a prelim. They're a quality side. Gold Coast, they've won some good games, but they've won some games today. Haven't really been against the toughest opposition. I mean, you look at Fremantle, a West Coast that I don't know in what state they are in.
Yeah.
And Adelaide are just absolutely revolting.
Yeah. No, that's
so
right.
I think, but if Gold Coast win this, huge.
You really need to consider them as, playing finals football if they're going to play like that. I know that Geelong haven't been great over the past couple of weeks with that loss to Carlton and only just scraping by against Melbourne last week. But this week you've got Ablett playing 350 and you've got Selwood playing his 300. So you'd imagine that would be enough to get the boys up. Yeah,
that's right.
And I did also hear throughout the week that, is Chris Scott there, Scott?
Yeah, Chris Scott.
Yeah. They seem like they're going to tag Matty Rao. So there'll be a bit of a challenge for the fifth gamer now.
Yeah.
Just see how he's able to deal with that.
Keep on tucking that bloody jumper out of him.
Yeah, that's it. Just be a pain in the backside.
That was some good footage.
That was good from Taberner. It's about the most he offered that night, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, so the next we've got the Doggies and North.
I went the Dogs for this one. I don't know which way it'll swing, though. Both of these sides have been really difficult to gauge. Like, their best has been really good, but their worst has been absolutely shocking. So I don't know what both teams are going to bring.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because you've got Cunnington in, but at the same time you've got Jack Zeeble out. So, huge in, huge out. I'd rather Cunnington over Zeeble. I think
Zeeble hasn't provided much, I don't think, for North this year.
Yeah, and Cunnington's such a workhorse in the middle, so I think that will help them. Of course, they'd like both of them, but that's not going to happen. And, the Dogs have Aaron Norton injured, so that gives Josh Shackey a chance to come in, and it'll be interesting to see whether he can get some form. Highly praised player, highly touted as a youngster. You'd imagine that, he's going to need a few games to get started, but you'd imagine that he wouldn't have a great amount of time left to really start performing before the fans start to grow weary with him. I'm going to have to go the Dogs as well, though. Just from the way that they played last week, their best football, I think, is better than North's football.
Yeah.
The best.
100%.
I think that will probably be the differentiating factor between the two. Now, the next one I've got is my game of the round. Ned.
Yeah, same. I cannot wait for this one.
It's going to be a cracker. I'm honestly at a coin flip between these two. It's so hard to tell. I picked Brisbane because it's the home game. That's what I've gone with it.
That's what I've done with it as well. Just the Gabba, and I think they're starting to turn the Gabba into a bit of a fortress now, Brisbane. So
I did notice that they've got Dane Zorko out, whereas Port have gone in unchanged.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to gauge this game which way it will go. Because they're both probably playing the most attacking styles of football. These two sides.
Yeah, well, we saw last week. I think Brisbane managed to get like 35 scoring shots off in, shorter quarters and everything. So,
Yeah,
I think the ridiculous inaccuracy, they can't afford to do that against Port Adelaide, whereas they can afford to do it against a team like Adelaide.
yeah.
Next game. And then from
Nice.
one game of the round, and this could probably be a game of the round in other circumstances in terms of potentially finding out who our wooden spooners are going to be, Ned. We have Adelaide versus Fremantle.
Yeah, well, this is going to be really weird with Nat Fyfe out. That's definitely not going to help Fremantle.
Mm-hmm.
So I did tip Freo, but I'm not going to be surprised if Adelaide win. But some of the selections that have come out of Adelaide over the last few weeks are obviously looking for youth, so I don't think they're as strong as what they potentially could be. But I think Fremantle, they have a few very capable players still on their list, so I think Fremantle just.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm pretty sure in it I've tipped Fremantle this week, although looking at Nat Fyfe being out, which obviously, it's no need to talk about how important that is for Fremantle, but Matt Crouch is in, and I don't even know what he was doing out of the squad in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
So he'll provide a lot of grunt inside the middle and probably some clean hands, which they needed. Well, they were destroyed in the midfield last week against Brisbane.
Yeah,
they have been destroyed every week. So if anyone can figure out why he's out, let us know, because I'm dazed by that. Dazed.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got Melbourne playing Richmond at the MCG. We've got Jake Arts making his debut, Ned. So you're our Richmond pro around here, the go-to man. So what do we think of Jake Arts?
Jake Arts I think he's been in the VFL system for about 6 years. He's been very good at VFL level. I'm actually very surprised that it's taken this long for him to get a game. He's probably going to play a small forward in the seniors, but he does tend to play a lot more middle time in the reserves. But great to see Mabior Chol coming in for a kick as well. I think he gave us a lot last year, throughout probably about this time last year, kicking goals. And, I don't know why we've only gone with the one ruckman, but I'm glad that we've got someone like Chol now that can go into the ruck, because having Broad or Lynch or Grimes come up into the ruck, I don't know what they've been thinking, but yeah, I'm glad that they've brought in a sort of second ruckman.
Well, that is a question I was going to ask you, because they brought in Noah Bolter as well. So is there any, what do you think the method is behind Richmond going taller this week? They've gotten rid of their smalls. They've dropped Bolton, they've dropped Ross, and they've dropped Stack. So what do you think the method is behind that, between going taller?
I think, I only got to look at last week against St Kilda. The marking thing was a fair bit of a problem. Like in the back line especially, Asprey's probably really our only real tall defender. Like Grimes plays well above his size, but I think it's good that I think Bolter's very well deserving of a game. I'm not sure about where he's gonna stand anywhere in the side, especially with Lynch and Rewald in, because Chol mostly spent his time in when Jack Rewald was out injured. So, yeah, I don't know where they're going to chuck Chol or Bolter either. But I think they've been training Bolter up as a backman.
Yeah. And then Melbourne's gone in unchanged, so still no Harley Bennell and still no Neville Jetta.
It's a bit sus on Harley Bennell, I reckon.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it sounds like he's dominated reserve games as well. I think I heard he kicked 4 of their 7 goals last time out for the reserves. So there's obviously
and he played quite a good
game
game at first grade level against Carlton. He played a very good game for limited minutes.
No, I'm not too sure what they're doing down in the city, down at Casey Fields, but they've got to start doing something. They need wins on the board pretty quickly. Sitting down in 15th spot at the moment.
So who have you gone for this game?
I've gone the Tigers. pretty much, once again, I know they haven't played their best football. I didn't think they were too far off against St Kilda last week. I know that the stats pretty much were 50-50 each way. St Kilda was just a little cleaner, which you don't hear too often. I don't think it'll be too far, and I don't think there'll have to be too many adjustments for Richmond to find what they're capable of. And I've pretty much just gone with the theory that, once again, Richmond's best is better than Melbourne's best. And to be honest, I think if Melbourne play at their worst and Richmond play at their worst, Richmond would still get the job done. So I think it would have to, Melbourne would have to put a lot on to make sure that they're competitive. But they were, competitive against Geelong last week. And I found it interesting, the game plan that Chris Scott brought in, trying to really defend against Melbourne. Treating them with a lot of respect. I thought that he would have gone out with the players that he's got and played really aggressive.
Yeah.
Try and put on a big score.
Yeah.
Final game of the round, we've got GWS taking on Hawthorn down at Giant Stadium. Thoughts on that, Ned?
Yeah, this one's another hard one to gauge because Hawthorn are playing really well. I watched the game against North and they were all over North, but I went to bed, game over. But somehow North clawed their way back in. I think the Giants, like your theory, their best is better than Hawthorn's best. I feel Hawthorn are going back to their traditional roots of really trying to control the ball. And the Giants are starting to bring back that sort of the orange wave, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be interesting.
I think it's a bit of a cliche, but this game is really going to be one in the midfield. In the last 10 minutes last week against North Melbourne and in the second half against Geelong, Hawthorn's midfield went to sleep. Yeah. They got crushed in clearances. They got crushed in contested ball. And I think if you give GWS the slightest chance to do that, they'll take advantage, especially with the forward line that they possess. And it looks like Toby Green's playing in red-hot form as well. He had a blinder last week against Maynard. I'm going GWS purely based on how they played last week. I think consistency is the key for them. I think Leon Cameron, he's got the keys to Ferrari. He's got to make sure he learns how to use them, mate. No better chance than against the Hawks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, I think GWS will get the job done.
Beautiful. Well, that's all that we are going to do in terms of previewing this week. We may as well say goodbye to our listeners. Now, I'm going to try and get this set up on Facebook from now on, so that way it's just easier for people to tune in. I'll see if I can go live and sort it out. I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology, so that might be a couple of weeks in the making, but I'll try my best. I hope your mob goes well on Sunday. I hope they get a win for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, I hope they do too, because they really need one. Us is really back to the drawing board, I reckon. But,
yeah. Oh, just one final question. Do you think that they're going to allow full lists to go to these hubs, or do you reckon they're going to have, say 30 or 35?
Yeah, they might take a shortened list and then just have the others on sort of standby or something, maybe in case of injuries or suspensions or whatever. I'm not sure,
Well, good to hear from you, Ned. I'd say we'll be sure to tune in next week and we'll be able to review this round and preview the new fixtures that are forever changing at the moment. Beautiful.